Welcome in to the New Orleans Saints podcast, hosted by Erin Summers and John DeShazier. You'll hear from players, coaches, broadcasters, and writers who cover the team on a daily basis. The New Orleans Saints podcast starts right now. Here's your hosts, Erin Summers and John DeShazier.
I feel like we've had a good, couple of days of practice. I think our guys are ready to play, so we just got to go out there and do it now.
Welcome into the New Orleans Saints podcast. I'm Erin Summers. Head coach Dennis Allen said the focus this week was on taking care of the players' bodies and making sure they are physically ready to play on Thursday. With the short week, Wednesday the team practiced outside, per the players' request.
We had a couple of players coming to me. They wanted to get off the turf a little bit, get outside, get some fresh air, so I thought it was a good change-up for us today.
The Jaguars will be playing their third game in just 12 days in 3 different time zones. The wear on their bodies may be a bit heightened. Head coach Doug Peterson is 7-0 all-time in Thursday night games, and as my mom would say, that means he's due for a loss. In their preparation for the Jaguars, DA said what stood out is Jacksonville's ability to take the ball away. The team leads the league with 15 on the season.
I think they've done a great job taking the ball away, setting their offense up into some favorable field positions. I think they play hard. I know Josh Allen's done a really good job getting after the quarterback. I think they do a pretty good job of defending the run. But I think their ability to, take the ball away is the one thing that really stands out to me.
Is there something that creates that?
Yeah, I just think, they play, extremely hard. They make you go the long, hard way. They don't give up, a ton of big plays down the field, and so they try to keep the ball in front of them, and I think they do a good job of attacking the ball.
Wednesday's injury report listed 5 Saints as out: right tackle Ryan Ramczyk, offensive lineman James Hurst, and tackle Landon Young, safety JT Gray, and tight end Jawan Johnson. Allen said linebacker Demario Davis will be a game-time decision as he has not practiced all week with a knee injury. Safeties Lonnie Johnson Jr. and Tyrann Mathieu, as well as running back Jamal Williams, were also listed as questionable. The official list of inactives for the game Thursday will come out an hour and a half before game time. We'll have it on our pregame show that starts live on NewOrleansSaints.com at 6:15. With the Thursday night game, that means the Saints are on Amazon Prime in prime time. And it gave John DeShazier and myself a chance to catch up with sideline reporter Kaylee Hartung, a Louisiana native and longtime Saints fan. Kaylee, thanks for joining us. It's so good to have you back in New Orleans, Louisiana. How are you doing?
I am so glad to be home. I've gotten to see my parents already, got a dinner in at Commander's Palace last night, so things are off to an awesome start.
So you must have had that circled for a while, because those reservations are hard to come by.
Yeah, no doubt. I mean, it was one of the first things I looked at when we got the schedule last May, right? It's always, what cities are we going to? What's that experience going to be like? And considering our Amazon crew didn't get to come to New Orleans last season, we saw the Saints in Arizona. I had a feeling we might get New Orleans in this season. So yes, it has been circled, and so far so good.
Good. Have you ever covered a game in the Superdome?
I actually have. My last football game at ESPN, covering college football, and it was wild to think back on because I didn't realize at the time that it would be my last college football game to work. But it was the Sugar Bowl in January of 2017, Oklahoma, Auburn, with Brent Musburger and Jesse Palmer on the call. And it was very special for me to get to work that game. And then, of course, the significance of it all kind of grew once I realized I was leaving ESPN. Yes, so I'm excited to get back in there. The last time I was in the Superdome, I realized, was when LSU won the national championship after that amazing 2019 season. So I know to get to cover an NFL game there is going to be such a special experience. I don't think I've actually been to a Saints game in the Superdome. I was trying to recall, but I think it was like 12 years ago or something, but very well aware of the incredible environment it's going to be. And that's part of what helps make my job so much fun on Thursdays, right? When those environments are so electric, as I know the Superdome can be.
So you're getting to cover your first NFL game in the Superdome and the Saints, a team that you watched growing up. Just how cool of a moment is tomorrow night going to be for you?
Yeah, really special. I've had so many wonderful memories there. Like I was saying, that 2019 national championship game and my last game at ESPN, also the 2003 national championship game for LSU, which Andrew Whitworth won. This is even cooler for him. I mean, he has won at every level of his career in the Superdome. So as much as I'm excited about it, I know it has really special significance for him too. But also, I have 8 family members coming to the game. I, had to put in a special early request to my bosses at Amazon to make that happen. And they've taken such great care of me because they know how excited I am to be home. So yeah, all of it is cool. I wish I had more time here. These weeks are always so crazy when we drop into these cities and we're trying to fit in all of our prep and our calls and meetings with the teams and things. So, not getting to do all of the things I would love to do in New Orleans, not getting to see all of my friends here, but happy to be here nonetheless and making the most of it while I can.
It's so funny when your parents or family friends ask to come to a game to watch you work, because it's you see more of what I'm actually doing if you're watched on TV, but they just like to see you down there.
Exactly. Oh yes, my mom and I have had that conversation. But here's the great thing about Amazon on Prime Video. You can watch it on your phone while you're sitting in the stands there, and they'll have the heads up, right? They'll be able to see me running around the field, getting in front of the camera. So I will not put it past my mother to be pulling up Prime Video on her phone while she's inside the Superdome.
So Kaylee, Baton Rouge person, right? Baton Rouge native, right?
Born and raised.
How on earth did you get away from LSU in the manship school?
It's such a great program, and I've been so lucky to go back there and spend time there and meet so many of the wonderful faculty and students there, and I'm so impressed with what the manship school has done. But my dream was always to get out of Baton Rouge in the sense that I just knew the world was bigger than the place that I loved more than anywhere in the world. So it's wild to think how far my career is taking me. I mean, literally coast to coast, from college in Virginia, working in Washington, D.C., then Austin, Atlanta, New York, L.A. But Baton Rouge will always be home.
Now, you were somewhat of a newsie, correct? I mean, you started, you do some Face the Nation, some CNN, some ABC News. When did you know the transition to sports would be what you wanted to do?
So my first dream in television was to anchor the Today Show. That idea was born when I was 10 years old. It was the show we watched. It was the show that was on every morning as I was getting ready for school. And the truth is that sports kind of came as a surprise in my career, because I had gotten my first job, which was the most incredible job, being Bob Schieffer's assistant at CBS News in the Washington Bureau, working for him at Face the Nation. And I started freelancing for CBS College Sports Network, working the sidelines for college football games. And it really was, anybody who's worked in television knows that you've got to get that first opportunity to get your reps on live TV. There's nothing else like it. Until you do that, you don't know what it feels like, and you don't know how good you are at it. And it was working in sports that gave me that first opportunity in front of the camera. And then when the opportunity came to go to ESPN, it was more than I ever imagined. And my boss, Bob, at the time said, I know you want to work in news, but if this is where you can get that experience, you've got to go take it. So I say that there's no way I ever could have had a career in sports if I wouldn't have grown up in Baton Rouge, because I got to grow up around LSU. My mom worked for the Tiger Athletic Foundation. I didn't even know how lucky I was to have the access that I did to the incredible athletes that were at LSU while I was growing up. Getting to be a fan of LSU basketball when Shaq was playing, LSU baseball in the 90s, and then, of course, LSU football all the while. So I just grew up around it in a way that I was familiar with sports. I was never an athlete. Nobody would ever guess that I would be. But people ask me, what sport did you play? Thinking that had something to do with why I got into sports reporting. But it was always about being a fan. So there was the time at ESPN, and then I got to try myself out and in the news world on camera, from CNN to ABC News. And honestly, I thought that my sports reporting career was done. I was hoping that I would get to tell important sports stories. But when the Amazon call came, man, it was such a surprise, and absolutely one of those things that was too good to pass up. And now I just feel like I am in the most incredible situation, getting to report on the NFL for Amazon and also contributing to the Today Show. So it's a very cool situation I find myself in, and I feel so lucky and just pinch myself all too often.
So what's it been like doing the Thursday night games? Because Thursday night is the regular routine for you guys, but for players, it's a short week and guys are kind of bumped and bruised and grumpy
Oh my
and
gosh.
those kinds of things.
Oh, we are always, I mean, injuries are one of the things that I have to stay on top of the most meticulously. And on Thursday nights, I think those injury reports are always a little bit longer heading into those games because of the short week that they're dealing with. So on top of that, I just find myself apologizing to every player and coach I talk to in the lead up to that game, because it is such a tough week for them. So, I mean, my game prep every week really starts on Sunday. I try to kind of take a breather on Friday and Saturday as best I can. But, on Sundays, I'm getting to watch those games and begin my preparation, and then our planning and calls on calls start on Monday. And it's a crazy condensed week. And if I'm being honest, last season I wasn't yet contributing to the Today Show. This is my first season doing football and Today at the same time, and talk about compounding an already crazy schedule. But again, it's such a dream come true that I don't mind it. I'll sleep in February or when I'm dead. I don't know.
I was about to say never. So your Sunday prep, when you're prepping, are you specifically only watching the teams that you'll be covering, or are you watching the whole league?
Well, I'm watching the two teams who I will be covering. I'm watching those games in their entirety, making sure I can hear every report from the sideline reporter, making sure I'm following the storylines that announced crew is most focused on. Again, keeping up with those injuries that happen in those games. So I watch both of my teams' games in their entirety, full sound up, and focused on them. But God bless the Red Zone and Scott Hansen, because I have that on all day. So I am able to keep track of everything that's going on, because obviously week to week, you want to build on your familiarity with what's going on and what's happening with these teams.
So how many screens are we talking? It sounds like 3.
So I've got on my TV, I usually have Red Zone with the, you can do the multi-view now on YouTube TV, which is also fantastic. And then I'll have the game that I'm focused on in that moment on my iPad, and then I'll be on my laptop working on my depth chart and my notes and all of those things. So it's a pretty funny setup. There have been so many weekends, where friends are like, "Hey, we're watching football, come over." I'm like, I am not a social football watcher on Sunday. This is a work day for me. So yeah, I'm doing that in the confines of my home, if I'm able to get back to LA, or hotel rooms if I need to be in New York for the Today Show on Monday, or if I've got to shoot somewhere. That's the beauty of technology. You can do this stuff from anywhere. My MiFi, my little portable Wi-Fi device, that thing is like, data's used up in one day, as I had to do all my prep one week in a car getting driven from, I was in Foxborough for a shoot before a game for the Today Show. And then I ended up having to drive from Foxborough to New York because all the flights got canceled. And so, I mean, even like my driver, in the front seat is like laughing at me, like, "What are you doing back there? How are you?" And in that case, I was using my second iPhone as one of my screens, plus my iPad and, all the things. But data charges to the corporate card, thank goodness.
Yeah, way to adapt in that situation. You mentioned following storylines. What are the storylines that you're following heading into the Saints and Jags game Thursday night?
I think there are such different vibes on these two teams right now. I mean, here comes Jacksonville. They have that great 2-game swing, winning both in London, then a third on Sunday. But of course, here you are with Trevor Lawrence, a guy who's been really healthy throughout his entire career, never really missed a game. And of course, the left knee is going to be my focus. Like, all eyes are going to be on Trevor Lawrence for sure during pregame warmups. He says that he's going to do everything he can to be out there, and I don't doubt that. He says that he felt a lot better on Tuesday than he would have thought, but he is trying to adjust to wearing a knee brace. He thinks he'll probably be wearing that during the game. So again, this is a guy who's just been historically healthy, thankfully, in his career, dealing with a new challenge. So that's sort of top of mind. But of course, we've seen quarterbacks play through pain before, and Trevor is somebody who absolutely has that drive to want to play through and be there for his team. So speaking of Derek Carr, right, I think it's incredible that he didn't miss any time really with that AC joint sprain in his throwing shoulder. But of course, we'll keep an eye on that too. And like I said, two very different vibes on this team, on these two teams. Jacksonville with all this momentum, and then the Saints. I mean, my gosh, night and day. listening to the post-game press conferences after that shutout of the Patriots, which was pretty special, to what happened this past Sunday. So they've got a lot of things to clean up, the red zone especially, the communication also, and when it comes to injuries, my gosh, trying to figure out who's lining up on the Saints O-line is a task in and of itself, right? So how are they going to piece it up front to make that work? And I think there's just, in general, a lot of pent-up frustration and emotion for the Saints right now. And what does that translate to on the field? Again, we heard their tone post-game, as I know you both did. So seeing what I can observe on the sidelines of how that's manifesting during the game, if they continue to have those problems, will be interesting for me. And like we said, a short week's never easy when you've got a lot of problems to clean up. So we'll see.
I know Thursday night's going to be the crucial catch game for the Saints. Are you guys doing anything around that?
Yes. So, Brian Brzez's story is one that I've followed since his days at Clemson. Ella Strong is such a powerful mantra for him, as it was for that Clemson team, as his little sister fought cancer and, succumbed to it during his Clemson career. So Brian will be my focus for just telling his story and why he plays for her. I think it's such a powerful and emotional one. And, those stories have been really important for me to try to get into the games each week. I think any players, why they play the game, why they make the sacrifices and have the determination and the will to keep fighting in the way that they do. I think it's always interesting to know those whys. And when it comes to these crucial patch games, it gives us such a unique opportunity to really explore those in a really personal and special way.
Do you have any story this year that has caught you by surprise that you found through your reporting, or that was a really fun, one of your favorite stories?
Oh gosh, that's such a good question. It was so funny. Last week, this is just sort of top of mind because it was just last week, Kansas City, Denver game last week. And no, this has nothing to do with Taylor Swift, although we were thrilled that she was there. But, the Kansas City secondary, I remember going into our first game. It was, Amazon's first game last season, week 2, Chiefs Chargers. One of our big focuses was the fact that the Chiefs had drafted 5 rookies to fill out their secondary. They needed help back there. So how was that group going to respond? And then, of course, the Chiefs go on to win the Super Bowl. So coming into this game, I was thinking, I really want to know more about the growth of those guys and that group, a unit that's become so strong with so many young guys. How did that happen? And so I just happened to run into the Saints defensive backs coach pregame. He was just doing laps. I mean, sweatiest guy on the field 3 hours before kick. And so I start walking with him. Didn't really take into account the sweat I was going to work up trying to keep up with him. But nevertheless, I'm asking him, what has been the key to bringing these guys along and to them growing and evolving so quickly? And he was like, I tell them to stay green. And I was like, in my head, I'm thinking, usually the connotation of being green isn't a good one, right? And he's like, well, I show him a picture of a banana. And I was like, come again? And he actually sends me this photo that he shows his guys, right? And there's a picture of a rotten banana. And it's like, you don't want to be this guy. This guy is, it's too late for him to learn. It's too late for him to change. He's at this point just set in his ways and he's a goner, right? And a ripe banana, as appealing as that sounds, right? This is somebody who's comfortable with what he knows. But that green banana, that one that's still growing, is wanting to learn every day. And it was something that Trent McDuffie, one of their great DBs, had told me. Here he is just in his second year. And I was asking him if he prefers to play inside or outside because they've been moving him around. And he was saying, well, I love playing outside because there's no better feeling than shutting down an entire side of the field, being out there on an island by yourself and having that power. He was like, but I'm really having fun playing inside. I did it for the first time last year and I still have so much to learn there. And I'm really enjoying that. And I was like, there's case in point, this idea of staying green that their coaching staff is preaching. So yeah, that was one of those that I stumbled upon and, just kind of got a kick out of, and it was a fun one to add in.
God, I don't know exactly which banana I am. So Kaylee, what makes for what are the do's and don'ts for a good sideline report? Because, announcers and sideline reporters take a lot of heat, and I know you guys have to tune it out. What are you specifically looking for to make your reports special?
There are a couple of different types of reports, right? There are the news-driven ones, if you will, an injury report, telling people the latest on a guy's status, my observations, what I've seen, their behavior, confirmation from the team about that guy's status and specifics about the injury. We go to great effort to make sure that those injury reports are delivering the news that we need to. But for the more storytelling opportunities that I have, I see my role as one I can never know as much as the greatest, most fervent, lifelong fan of a team can know about their team, no matter how much I prepare. So what can I tell them that they will find interesting, that they couldn't know because they don't have my access, because they aren't on the field? And how can I enhance that experience for them? So that's sort of my challenge to myself every week. And a lot of it is sort of trusting your instincts. If something piques your interest, finding the best way to storytell that and share it with an audience to, again, just enhance that experience. And that's why, like I was saying, as I'm prepping on Sundays, watching those games, I want to make sure I have as much awareness as I can of what stories were just talked about. And a lot of times those can help me build to how can I take that to the next level a week later.
All of it sounds really interesting, and I can't wait to see what you bring to the broadcast. On Thursday, I will be sitting in the press box, but I'll have my headphones on so I can listen to you guys on one screen. So I appreciate the time so much, and I'm glad you're getting a little bit of time to spend in New Orleans.
Me too. Thank you, guys. This was such a pleasure.
It was great to have Kaylee on the podcast. We're looking forward to the game tonight. Hopefully you Saints fans will come out and represent on the big stage. I'll see you there.
Thanks for listening to the New Orleans Saints podcast. Join us 3 times per week on NewOrleansSaints.com, the Saints mobile app, or you can download the podcast on iTunes. We'll see you next time, right here on the New Orleans Saints podcast.